Good morning, everybody. I'm Larry Weissoon. If you enjoy real-world hunting and fishing talk, you're really going to enjoy listening to my good friend, Luke Clayton, and his guest for the next hour.
This is David Fox, and welcome to Outdoors with Luke Clayton and Friends. Luke has been a recognized outdoors writer for the past 3 decades and writes for a host of outdoor publications. Luke pens a weekly newspaper outdoors column that appears in over 40 Texas newspapers. Luke is on the pro staff of Pyramid Air, your one-stop shop for everything air gun related. Smoking techs, electric smokers, feel free to contact Luke through his website, catfishradio.org. Now let's join Luke and his guests for this week's show.
Well, thank you, fellas, and Mr. Whitetail is right here with me. We are going to have a little fun, talk about a recent squirrel hunt with dogs and who knows what all. Larry, thank you for being with us this week, like always, you know.
Oh, my gosh, it's such a pleasure, and I'll have to tell you, Luke, the DSC Convention in Atlanta that we just finished last weekend was absolutely fantastic. A lot of folks there, a lot of smiling faces, and including some of the a lot of the exhibitors as well, too. So it could not have been better. We raised a lot of money for conservation, and the good thing about it is the vast majority of dollars that come into DSC are spent very wisely on wildlife conservation efforts as opposed to going to somebody's salaries and all that other kind of thing, as some other organizations have a tendency to do. But great event, and I want to thank everybody that was there, and ran into a bunch of friends that I don't get to see very often, so could not have been more pleased about it. And now we're planning our DSC Foundation Gala, which will be July 23rd, 24th, and 25th there at the Gaylord Texan in Grapevine, Texas. So everybody kind of put that on their radar. And need to mention, of course, DSC has been such a great sponsor of ours for a long time, and conservation, education, hunter advocacy. Hornady had an opportunity to spend time with Hornady, Steve Hornady, this past month with up there in the Choctaw, and of course they produce some fine ammo that's accurate, deadly, dependable. The Stealth Vision guys, Joe Cunningham and Dr. John McCall, they were out at the DSC convention as well, and had an opportunity to spend some time with them, and then ran into the old friends of mine that work with Taurus as well too, that produce the Raging Hunter handgun that I dearly love hunting with. So that was a great event. And just prior to that, of my leaving for Atlanta, all that kind of good stuff, we had an opportunity to do that squirrel hunt that we've been talking about a long time, with Mr. Donnie Lynch coming down with his dogs.
We did, Larry. And
his dog, actually. He brought one dog.
He brought old Stubby, who is
Stubby.
Yeah, his official breed is a giant rat terrier. And giant is a stretch of the imagination. It's just a little old terrier. But boy, is he, that's a breed of dog that Donnie has, as he's developed. I mean, that strain of them, they are awesome. They're prize-winning squirrel dogs. But, folks, we had been talking about, after the major part of deer season, of course, we were in Kaufman County on the Cotton Ranch. It's owned by Mr. Edgar Cotton, and his son David is right there in the middle of everything. And so we'd been planning a squirrel hunt with Donnie Lynch. Donnie is a raiser of champion squirrel dogs. He lives down in Uncertain, Texas, which is right there on the banks of Caddo Lake. So we assembled. Joe Dunn, good friend of mine, Larry, Jeff Rice came and filmed. David and Edgar and Larry and myself, we were all there, and the plan was to just kind of midday just to drive around, Larry. And, we had 2 of the side-by-sides that the Cottons have out there. And I was geared up, ice in the cooler. I was ready to bag up a bunch of squirrels. But the truth of the matter is, it was right after that ice storm. It was still cold, and wind was blowing. And there's a lot of squirrels on that, 1,200 acres, bottomland, some of it, Cedar Creek runs through it. It's squirrel haven. But if a squirrel is in a hollow, in a den, and don't want to come out, you're not going to get him. And that's what happened, wasn't it, Larry? We didn't. Well, after the day was done, late in the evening, you guys saw some fox squirrels, but we didn't. We drove and drove and drove, and that dog. There is no better squirrel dogs than those that Donnie has. Old Stubby did never get excited. He never smelled one. That's hunting, though. That's just the way it goes.
It is. The ground was still really cold and wet and nasty and all that kind of stuff there all throughout those bottom areas. And as a result of that, I think the squirrels, we've had just an unbelievable acorn crop this past year. And I got a feeling those hollows that they were in were about 3/4 filled with acorns. And what little time that they spent, they probably stuck their nose out of that hole and went, I ain't coming down today. And
yep.
So we finally got a little bit of break in the last part of the afternoon after Donnie had left, when the sun broke out just very briefly for a little bit. And when it did, that's when we happened to see those squirrels. And we did see one where we had gone through, but it was lying, that area, little old lane was lined with olive trees. So we know where the squirrels were during that time. But, all that said, that not to take anything away from the experience and get to spend time together there and visiting and talking and listening and learning. And, somebody like Mr. Donnie Lynch, who'd been involved in the outdoors all his life, his stories were just, people were just sitting there going, oh my goodness, kind of thing. And,
yeah.
And oh my gosh. But, hopefully somewhere down the way here, I think we got another squirrel season coming up here sometime in maybe the month of May. I got to check, but maybe during that time frame we can get Donnie back down there and see what we can find on squirrels at that hunt. Even if we don't, it'll be fun if we don't see a squirrel here in Bark Creek.
That's true. Yeah, there is a squirrel season in East Texas in May. There's a special May season, but in Kaufman County, where we're hunting, the season never closes. You can hunt them year-round.
Oh, really?
That's right, yeah. So, and I also live in Kaufman County. So, yeah, but the only real the squirrel seasons are all limited to the really East Texas counties. Other than that, you can hunt them year-round the rest of the state. Yeah.
Well, I need a lot of the counties, where I live and where my little place is, and all that kind of thing. And I think part of that is that's outside the breeding season. The little females, they've already raised their little ones, and so that to me is a great time to get out and really hunt those rascals.
You're right, Larry, and like you say, I would do it again 10 times just for the camaraderie and the fun that we had. Winter day, we'd all had suffering from a little bit of cabin fever because that was just after all that ice and snow,
Yes, sir.
We talked about doing that for a long time, and just a group of good friends. And to me, that's a lot of what the outdoors is all about. It's a lot of the reason that I guess it's kind of a icing on the cake for those of us that like to hunt and fish, Larry. It's just I guess golfers maybe have the same. I've never been a golfer, but I do know I've got a lot of friends that are serious golfers, and they get together and get out there and wander around on those greens all day and knock that ball around. Maybe they have the same amount of fun. I don't know. I don't know how they could, but.
I don't know how they could either. The only time I've been on golf courses is twice in my life, and once it was to follow a set of coonhounds across it with my dad, and the other time was to hunt deer on it because it's the only place where there wasn't 6 feet of snow up in Canada. So I can't say much about golfing.
And all my friends that golf, I'm not knocking it. I want you to keep having fun, and
amen.
We'll keep chasing fish and game. Larry, one thing I want to shift gears on is I love outdoor cooking, and you know how much I love to eat out anything. It's good.
Me too.
So, folks, Larry, in my opinion, is the grill meister, and I've learned this from him. I haven't perfected this yet because I hadn't done it enough, but he takes chicken thighs, seasons them with Cavenders, and puts them over not a blazing fire, but red-hot coals, a real hot fire, and he just turns them periodically, and goes around and turns them and cooks them to where they're done, but they're not overdone. Some of the best chicken the best I've ever eaten, a grill like that. So that's one thing. Now I pulled out the day after, the evening after I left down at the camp in Kaufman County on a squirrel hunt. Some of the guys, Larry and a group of them, were still there. Well, what are we going to eat? They're all thinking, let's go to Whataburger, says David Cotton, and Larry says, no, well, I've got some chicken thighs, and he calls back to camp. I think I've got all this right, Larry. You call our friend Rick Lambert and say, Rick, take out the chicken thighs and get them defrosting. I've got a plan. Now, you take it from there. I have heard nothing but rave reviews on this fried chicken. Chicken thighs is what I'm trying to say. Chicken thighs, not breast. Chicken thighs. But rave reviews on those. Tell us how you cooked them, man. I got to try this.
Well, one of the things was it was really cold outside, and we had not started a fire like we normally do, and so I decided rather than try to start a fire and do all the things like we normally do with it, just grilling them. I told David earlier, I said, if we're going to eat, I've got probably 40 chicken thighs in the freezer there. So I called Rick, who was back at the cabin still, and I'd asked him to pull out about 16 or 18 of those for the four of us that were there. And so it was one of those things. Well, there were five of us there, I guess, but got back in, and they were thawed out, and I had already debone them. And usually what I do is when I buy them, I'll debone them, and I'll put like 4 or 5 in a container and freeze them. And so they were thawed out, and we got back, and David has got a deep fish fryer that's like a deep thing enough to to fry fish kind of thing. And we had French fries and stuff before, and I told him, I said, just take that grease, and I said, I'll cut up a couple of potatoes real quick, and we'll fry those, and that'll kind of purify that grease. And I said, then we'll fry these thighs, chicken thighs. And I got looking around, well, there was no flour, there was no cornmeal, there wasn't anything there that I could find that I could use to just do a dusting or a coating on these chicken thighs. So got to looking around, and what did I call those? Jeff Rice had left some crackers there.
Triscuits.
Triscuits, yeah.
Seasoned crackers, yep.
I found some Triscuit crackers that Jeff had left, found a small package of regular saltine crackers, and then there was an open bag of Dorito corn chips, if you will. Not talking about Fritos, but the kind that you get when you go to a Mexican food restaurant. So I grabbed those 3 and I individually just crushed them, just made them almost into a flour as best as I could, with a few little bit bigger pieces, and then mixed those 3 together and started applying it to the chicken. And of course, I'll leave the skin on, because to me, I love fried chicken skin to begin with, but secondly, it keeps that meat a whole lot moister. So, man, I did those up, and we dropped them in the hot grease, and had it probably about a little over 200, maybe 210, somewhere along in there as far as temperature, and just dropped them in there in that basket that we could take them out with, and fried them to a crisp golden color. And oh my God, did they turn out well. I almost kicked myself later for not having done up more, because the 5 people in that camp, they each ate about 3 or 4 thighs a piece. and I was told that everybody liked them. Rick Lambert left the next morning, and he said, Larry, my God, he said, we've had some great meals here at the Cotton Ranch. He said, but I got to tell you, that chicken we had last night was about as good as I've ever eaten fried chicken anywhere. And not because I did it, because all I did is just I used what I could find.
Yeah, exactly.
And that was just the only thing I could find that was there. And I'll tell you this much: I'll never put another chicken thigh or piece of chicken in a batter or anything else. But I'll make darn sure I got those Triscuits and saltine crackers and Dorito chips, and I'll make my own mixture from there on.
You bet. Well, there's our cooking tip for the week, Larry. I'll tell you what, I wish we had about 4 hours, because we're just getting cranked up. But it's time for a break. So thank you a lot for being with us, and you're going to be right back here next week. We're going to have some more fun talking, aren't we?
Yes, we are. I can't really even wait. let's get started as soon as we can.
Friends, Mr. Larry Weissoon is going to tell you about the finest hunting optics that we have ever found.
Look, these are called Stealth Vision. They come from Crockett, Texas. Dr. John McCall developed them. They're 34 millimeter tubes as opposed to the narrower tubes, so more light transmission. They have a little green light that comes on. That scope is leveled because that's when you want to pull the trigger. They have an optional lighted reticle as well too, and a whole lot of other products. And folks can learn more about them by going to stealthvision.com.
If you enjoy hunting, I want to hook you up with Ultramatic Feeders. You need to know about this company. The website is ultramaticfeeders.com. There are a one-shop stop for everything you need with hunting blinds. They have all kind of different brands of hunting blinds, game feeders, parts for feeders. Again, the website is ultramaticfeeders.com. And friends, I've been using Smoking Tex electric smokers for over 15 years, probably closer to 20 years. You can go online to smokingtex.com. They're not one of your throwaway electric smokers that you can find at some package stores. These things are made to last. I've got one that I've been using for, well, that length of time, probably 15 years. Check them out online, smokingtex.com. Well, folks, if you spend much time in the outdoors, I'll guarantee you've come across the topic that we're going to discuss, coy dogs. I have a guest, Mr. Stephen Ziegler. Now, Stephen is the head honcho for the Hunting News. It's on Facebook. And very knowledgeable guy, especially on this topic. I've spent a good bit of time talking to Stephen about coy dogs. You're going to learn some things that I learned that really did change the way I think about coy dogs. Stephen, thank you, buddy, for being with us.
Yeah, no problem. I appreciate you having me on.
Man, I've enjoyed learning about the research that you've done. A coy dog, folks, I'm sure most of our friends know what a coy dog is. It's what we hunters describe as a dog that's maybe half dog and half coyote. And I spent a lifetime in the woods all over, from Saskatchewan to Mexico. I've encountered a couple of animals, Stephen, with bushy tails, look somewhat like a dog. But here's the kicker. Here's what I want you to tell people about. In all of your research, and you've researched with biologists and people that spend a lot of time in the woods, there's never been a documented breeding of a coyote and a dog in the wild that you have found, right?
That's correct. I'm just like you. I just agree. I just assumed that it was real. I've seen things that look like a dog, but it's a coyote, and well, that's a mix. And that's kind of what I thought. But then I talked to three different people, mainly a geneticist, an ecologist, and then a guy who's been trapping and researching coyotes for 35 years. And the one guy, Jason Chapman, he actually has a $1,500 offer out there for anybody who can produce a genetic test of a true F1 phenotype, a first-generation coyote-dog mix that was done in the wild. And so far in 3 years, nobody's taken him up on it. I wrote a whole post on it that's reached, probably 2 to 3 million people by now. Nobody's been able to produce one. And on top of that, there's probably an estimated around 100,000 different genetic tests done on coyotes, and they haven't found one in the wild. Even though it is absolutely true that all coyotes have domestic dog DNA and they have wolf DNA, and we have proven that there's coyotes and dogs that do breed in captivity. So putting all those things together is kind of where I think that this whole thing about coy dogs comes from. That, along with, what we see with our own eyes that look like a dog and look like a coyote combined,
Yep. And I think this will put things in perspective. I thought, up until I've learned from dealing with you a lot, I thought you could take a German Shepherd female, for instance, in heat, chain her in the woods. Not that we're not going to do this, of course. This is just theoretical. If she, or just say she was out in the woods on her own in heat, away from humans, and a male coyote located this female, that they would breed. Not so, because the breeding ritual I've learned with the coyotes, they don't do that. But that same, say you had a shelter, a pen, 50 by 50, whatever, where they're confined together. You're telling me that does happen. They do breed in captivity, right?
Oh yeah, they've done studies on this. They've absolutely produced real coy dogs in captivity. But the breeding process for coyotes, and again, I'm taking a lot of this from the experts, the biologists, the ecologists, that I talked to. They said, they've looked for it in the wild, but because of how their mating process takes time. It's not just like like you think of a dog just walking up to another dog and then there's puppies. It's a lot longer than that. It's a lot more aggressive than that. And but to be clear, it is possible for a wild coyote and a dog to mate. It is possible. It's just never been proven to actually happen through a genetic test. And they've been trying to find it. So no matter what we think about it, what we've seen or anything, most of what people have seen when they see those hybrid mixes is actually color phases. Because there's a color phase I posted the other day. This is the initial story I did that I kind of got wrong, and I had to admit that I got wrong, was this like black, white color phase that looks like a not a German Shepherd. Well, there's German Shepherd looking ones, but it looks like a Husky mix.
Yeah.
It looks just like, in fact, the picture, it looks more like a Husky than it does a coyote, but that's just a color phase. And that some of that could be showing through from some of the dog or the wolf DNA that are in coyotes. I'm not an expert on the genetics, just what I've talked to people about.
That's the information.
What we're finding isn't coy dogs. It's not true coy dogs what we're seeing, but we are seeing things that look like dog coyote mixes.
Mm-hmm.
So what everybody's going to think that everybody I know believes in coy dogs. This is the first time I've realized that. Well, it's not exactly what I thought.
It's a fascinating subject because I have a good friend that trapped I don't know. It looked like a gigantic coyote. It looked like and it weighed 65 pounds. And, it had a little bit of the shoulders and all of a dog. And, that brought that to attention. And he sky traps for a living in the winter, And he said, well, I've never encountered one that big. I've seen animals in 2 or 3 in my whole life that I don't know. I just don't know. They looked a little bit like a small wolf. They looked a little bit like a coyote. Now, another interesting topic, Stephen, that you brought up that we talked about, the Native Americans, the Indians, they had dogs, and occasionally they would cow females under certain conditions will abandon their pups, and they would take a pup and bring it in with their domestic dogs, right? That's a theory.
Yeah.
And it sounds like a very viable theory to me,
Yeah, that's the leading theory because everyone goes, well, this is how I made my mistake on my post that went viral was that I knew that they could breed like we talked about, and I knew that there was DNA in all of them. So obviously it's happening. I mean, it makes perfect logical sense. But the way that the leading theory on how the domestic dog DNA has gotten into the coyotes is from the Native Americans. They had these domestic dogs, and then because they're nomadic tribes, and when you're a nomad, you have to take advantage of every resource that you find. And coyotes are very willing to run away from their pups. If the male dies, the female will abandon the pups. If they can't have enough food, if you scare off the pup, they'll leave the pup sitting there. So there was obviously, Native Americans that found these pups and would keep them. Well, now you're kind of raising them in a domestic way, and some of those obviously escape, get away, run away. In those cultures, it's not like our culture today where we have them chained up or we have them living in our houses. So that's the leading theory as far as I can tell. There's a couple other lesser that aren't quite mainstream theories, but that's kind of the main one why they think that there's that typically 3 to 7% domesticated dog DNA in every coyote. That's where they think it comes from.
But that is documented, right? I mean, that's what they find in the coyotes when they check them. A little bit of the dog DNA.
Yeah. Oh, every test that I've ever come across has domesticated dog and wolf DNA in all of them. And it's actually not super expensive to get DNA tests done. I watched some YouTube channels. Actually, my son was watching a hunting YouTube channel, this kid, and he caught some coyotes and sent in the genetic tests. And we watched how they all came back with certain percentages of dog. So yeah, there's domesticated dog and wolf and all these all the coyotes that are wild caught now.
You know, Stephen, I could spend probably 2 or 3 shows and just talk about this topic. But the main thing I wanted, and you did a great job talking about, that German Shepherd female out there probably there's no chance that it's going to actually breed with. And if any of our listeners, if you've got, you can contact me, friends, through catfishradio.org. My email is there. I'd like some input too. That's how we learn things. But I think a lot of people, myself included, and you too, Stephen, have learned something in your research talking about what happens actually in the wild and in domestication. So I want to make sure we have time to connect people with your site there. It's on Facebook. Tell people how to learn more. It's some very interesting topics that you cover.
Yeah, it's The Hunting News on Facebook, The Hunting News, and then also Rack Junkies. Those two are the biggest pages. And then my business partner, Aaron, he runs the Sportsman Party. So we kind of do some of the content on all 3 of those pages. The Hunting News is the one I'm doing all the writing about toy dogs right now, and just kind of showing all of my research. And again, this for me, I know a lot of people are going to hear this and go, well, but I've seen one. And I was you 2 days ago. I was you, and I was sure. And I wrote a viral post that reached 10 million people, and I found out I was wrong and had to admit it and do some more research. So do some research, follow what we're doing, and you can see on there exactly the genetic tests. We have primary source documentation on all this stuff, so you can know what's real, what's not real, and it's important for us to keep learning. I'm not right about everything, you're not right about everything, but as long as we keep learning and we do our best to get the best information out there, that's what I like about your show, and that's what I try to do on my platform as well.
Stephen, thank you very much, buddy. And going forward, I may pick your brain and learn a new theorem or two. So thanks for being with us. We'll get you back again. How about that?
I would love that. I really appreciate you having me on.
Well, friends, if you find yourself on Highway 175 heading southeast out of Dallas toward Kaufman and Athens, East Texas, you'll pass right by Crandall, Texas. Well, don't pass by. Exit right there. You'll see a big sign, Cotton Gin Restaurant. Whip in there, order you a chicken fried steak or one of the awesome items on their menu. They have live music at times on the weekends, and outdoor venue. It's just a great, fun place with some awesome food. You can go online to cottongincrandall.com and check them out. You'll probably see old Luke chowing down on a chicken fried steak when you get there.
Big Sam left Seattle in the year of 92 with George Pratt, his partner, and brother Billy too. They crossed the
Friends, this segment is made possible by Platinum Cadillac and Chevrolet in Terrell, Texas. Stop by and visit with my buddy Mr. Justin Rudd and his team of experts and let them put you in a new Chevy pickup or a Cadillac or whatever you might be in the market for. Also, the Choctaw Hunting Lodge up in southeast Oklahoma. Check them out at ChoctawHuntingLodge.com. Also made possible by Pyramid Air, your one-stop shop for everything airgun related. Well, friends, our next guest is Mr. Wade Derby. Now, Wade is a hunting consultant, and the name of his company is Crosshair Consulting. Wade is the guy, if you want to book a trip in South Africa and you've never been to South Africa, or you want to hunt up in Saskatchewan for big deer, he's your man. Or if you want to hunt in Texas, he's been doing this for decades. So, Wade, thank you for being with us, and I think the information you share that you're going to share is going to help some folks. So, appreciate you taking the time to be with us, buddy.
Thank you. I sure hope I can help.
You can help, I'll guarantee you. And I think just what I mentioned, a person that, very few hunters have been everywhere. But the bottom line is you just about have. Say South Africa. You're going there this spring, I think. Again, I've probably been there many times. But, they can, what you do as a hunting consultant is you're the first line of information. Folks can not just email you or whatever, but get a hold of you on the phone, go to your website, and you can tell them firsthand what it's like being there, right?
Absolutely. I go and check out places at my own expense, network with different people, and when I can afford to do it, I'll go and do a hunt, do the research on the place, meet the people that work there, the outfitters, the providers. Sometimes they're startup places, and I will give them some suggestions on what clients are looking for. But ultimately, I'm kind of a secret shopper, if you will, and I go and check it out. And if it looks like a solid place to send people, I'm not a broker. I'm more of a marketer. Mm-hmm. But I have a business agreement with the outfitter, and I start marketing and selling hunts for them.
Yep. And the good or the real, what's really helpful is the fact that, I've never been to Africa hunting and never will be, I'm sure, but I've got many, many buddies. Most of my friends have been. But you could, they could ask you questions that are very pertinent to that. What kind of caliber would you recommend for plains game? Or I'm a bow hunter, do I need, what type of a hunting operation should I try to look for? Cape, once I kill a Thompson gazelle, how do I get that cape back to the United States? All those questions. I mean, that you can answer them, and then at some point, I'm sure, they move from you to the outfitter that they're going to be hunting with, right? I mean, you'd hook them up with them.
Right. No, exactly. I mean, I try to talk to the hunters as much as I do the outfitters, and I try to match good people with good people. Some mm-hmm. people have different requests or different things that they're looking for. Even people that have hunted all over the world, they'll contact me and say, hey, I'm after a specific species, or I'm on a quest for this or that. And I try to match, outfitters and clients up. And I kind of stay as a liaison with them through the whole trip, even once they've talked to the outfitter. I have other networks of resources like customs brokers that help import animals. I don't really do taxidermy referrals, but I certainly have no problem passing on who I use for taxidermy. Some right. people ask that, things of that nature.
Yeah. A lot of people, have their own, most hunters, honestly, have their own taxidermists. They're usually local to where they live as a rule, so that's all important too right there. And then I'll tell you, for instance, folks, with Wade, I actually, Wade and I became friends in a unique way because in Red River County, Texas, northeast Texas, where I was raised, one of Wade's clients, I guess we could say, has a hunting ranch up there. And the ranch is actually 10 miles from where I was raised, and that was a connection right there. But then I started visiting with you, Wade, and I learned a lot more about what you do. But all your services are not necessarily distant places. I mean, we're not, for instance, you work with Bart that has the ranch there in Red River County. So that's a deer, trophy deer, hog place, mostly deer, but if you're in that neck of the woods, there's going to be some hogs, and I'm going to actually go up and do a magazine article with Bart here in a couple of weeks for and also for the newspapers there that I write for. So in the U.S., another case, Wade, that I think would help people understand what you do, I've got another friend, Samuel Old, in Virginia. He's got a manicured several hundred acres full of, and he really manages for big deer, open range, free range, and lots of eastern turkey. Well, that, you're going to go there and you're going to check it out. I already think I know what you're going to think about it. It's pretty awesome. But you're not going to say come. You're going to go there and experience it first, right? Then you can talk about it.
Oh, exactly. I'm trying to work out some dates right now to go to Virginia and visit with them, see the place, and do a turkey hunt in the spring. And if all goes well, start there and potentially do a deer hunt there in the fall, and see what we can do to help get some quality customers for them and match that situation up. And that'll be kind of a unique thing too, because it'll be mostly a do-it-yourself hunt, which, with the rising costs of hunting, I have more and more demand for people that are looking for a do-it-yourself situation to save a few dollars but still have a quality trip.
That's right. And the turkey hunting, I think most turkey hunters, most of them, not all of them, but most veteran turkey hunters, we like to do it ourselves anyway. I mean, that's the part that's fun. But for a novice turkey hunter, I know, for instance, Samuel's got a good friend he's been all over Guatemala. I think he's hunted all the turkey species, and he's available to guide if a person needed a guide, I think so. But when you're actually talking to a potential client, just say, for instance, that place, you'll find out if he says, well, I've never hunted turkeys. I don't really know anything about it. I'd like to learn. Well, that you'll file that away as that needs to be, he needs someone with him, that particular client, to show him the ropes and take him hunting, right?
No, absolutely. That's the thing. I, again, try to screen the customers from both sides to see who's a good match and a good fit. What people's expectations are. Try to plan it so that it's as turnkey and as custom as possible for that person's needs. Yep.
Yeah, it makes sense. Okay, let's get a little nuts and bolts here. But the hunter, the potential hunter client, if you will, he will deal with you, but he would book and all through the outfitter, right? I mean, that's where he's paying the outfitter for the service. Is that, am I on track with that?
Yeah, I mean, once they decide they're going to book, most of the outfitters, I collect the deposits for them, and I do all of that. I'll do contracts and what have you. But the outfitters are oftentimes do contracts as well. And then we just get everybody connected, get some dates set, get deposits in. And, like I said, I liaison with the hunter all the way through. And I always like to follow up after they've done a hunt too, and get their feedback, whether it's positive, which is what I'm hoping, but whether it's also negative or ways to improve for an outfitter. I like to pass that on.
You bet. As far as in the U.S., say you want to go antelope hunting, pronghorn antelope. What would be, there's options and many options, I'm sure, but what would be one of the favorite destinations, in your opinion, for someone that wanted to book a, August or September, I guess, antelope hunt?
Well, where I live here in Montana, we have a pretty strong population of antelope, and a number of permits. Non-residents have to draw those tags just like they have to in Wyoming. So Montana and Wyoming are definitely among the more popular, but there's some places where I can guarantee that people will get tags through landowner programs, and New Mexico's the example of that. Between 3 or 4 outfitters, I have access to about 60 landowner tags. And New Mexico is pretty unique too, because they don't get, even though we haven't had winter here in Montana this year, they don't get winter kill on the antelope or a lot of their game, because they've just got a more moderate climate. So the antelope down there tend to get some age on them. So as far as trophy antelope go, those areas like Arizona, which is a much tougher draw, And New Mexico, where I can get landowner tags, are extremely popular with my hunters. Those hunts usually fill up a year in advance, sometimes more.
You bet. That area around Springer, New Mexico, I've hunted that area in the past several times. There's so many antelope out in there. That would be a good place to go. And you can, that'd be more or less, if someone didn't have time or didn't take the time to put in for a draw hunt, the landowner permits, that would be an option that maybe they could do this coming year, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's super popular. And like I said, I actually have tried to expand that as much as I can and keep it manageable, because the seasons are short. They're only, at one point they were 2-day seasons, and New Mexico changed those to 3-day seasons in 2 periods. But bottom line, it's kind of a fast and furious hunt. You gotta, set up your dates, and you don't pick them. The state, picks those dates. They're state mandated seasons. So we've got to work around a lot of things, but it's a great state if somebody's after the larger antelope and they don't want to, have the inconvenience or hassle or do the homework to put in for like a draw hunt.
That's right. One more question, Wade. Say they do want to do the draw in Montana or Wyoming or wherever. You can help them with that too. I'm sure, right?
Yeah, no, yeah. I can put them in the right direction, and explain how it works. I don't do I know it's become popular over the last decade or so that licensing services and drawing services. I don't do that as part of my business. I just don't have, I have the time to do it for volumes of people, and I don't want to cut back my service on other things.
Right. So that's pretty simple deal. You just need to know who to call and what to do. Wade, I really appreciate you being with us. We're about out of time for this segment, but lead folks to Crosshair Consulting online, how they can reach you.
Yeah, I'm on Facebook on just Crosshair Consulting, and then also Instagram. I do have a webpage that's still being revamped right now, but that one is crosshairconsulting.com. And of course, you can always call me. My number is 406-439-8512.
Wade, thanks a lot, buddy. I know there's a lot of people out there that would like to book a hunt at some distant place and just probably do not know the best way to do it. So thank you a whole lot, and look forward to, getting you to share some information on some future shows. How about that?
I look forward to it. Thank you again.
Folks, I want to tell you about one of my long-term partners, and that is Pyramid Air. The website is pyrmydair.com. They're a one-stop shop for everything airgun related. Big bores, little bores, PCP guns, springers, you name it. All different brands, some great airgun supplies, but also a whole lot more. Archery, ammo, optics, shooting and outdoor gear, action sports, all this stuff can be found right there and ordered through Pyramid Air. So remember, go online to pyrmydair.com.
The snowflakes fall as winter comes, and time just seems to fly.
Friends, I've been shooting and hunting with CVA muzzleloaders a long time. They are, in my opinion, the best muzzleloaders on the market. But did you know CVA also makes a very fine line of centerfire rifles, built to last and super accurate? Been hunting with those for several years. Check them both out, the muzzleloaders and the centerfires, online at cva.com. Folks, I want to introduce you to some good friends of mine at Dash for Cash Pawn Shop in Seagoville, Texas, located at 133 Hall Street. The phone number is 972-287-3121. Go by there and talk with Gary or Randy, the owner. They're great people. They've got some great prices. Again, that's the Dash for Cash Pawn Shop, Seagoville, Texas, 972-287-3121. Well, friends, let's go down to the Trinity River above Lake Livingston. And David Cox, a longtime friend of mine for decades, Palmetto Guide Service. David is with us. David has guided He guides on Livingston year round, but the white bass spawn, and I don't know anybody that's ever fished the white bass spawn in the spring more anywhere than David Cox. David, thank you for being with us, buddy.
Thank you, Luke. I appreciate you so much. Thank you.
Yes, sir. You bet you, man. So I don't know how many years that we fished together in the Trinity River above Livingston, which is just a noted white bass. We call them sand bass up in the north part of Texas, but white bass run. And you have been guiding for decades down there. Nobody knows more about this, folks, than David, I'm telling you. But there's no appreciable rainfall in the watershed up the river, and there's no current right now in the Trinity to speak of down that way. But you said those conditions are conducive to catching a bunch of big spawning white bass right now. So tell us about that. How that works. You call them, I guess, residents of the river, but you and your clients are catching a bunch of big old white bass right now with very little current, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right, Luke. I guess one pattern leads to the next is a way to describe it. If the creeks are moving, the fish will run as far up the creeks as they can and stack up with some phenomenal fishing. Well, right now it's been dry. We haven't had much rain. The Trinity River at Riverside is primarily where I'm talking about, of course. And the river's about a foot low right now. Mm-hmm. And you can see 2 or 3 feet down. I mean, the water is green. And the fish will spawn in the river. They don't have any reason to leave the river. They're not going to go up so much at Parman and White Rock and all the way up to Beat Eyes. It's that moving current with local rains and Dallas rain that moves them up in the creeks. Well, that's just not happening right now.
Yeah.
And actually, I'm really excited about it because I love catching white bass in the river this time of year. The big spawning feet, I call them speed bass around here a lot of times. Old timers used to call them speed bass, but they will stack up in the river channel and fish it a little bit different. I fish a little bit bigger baits and troll quite a bit for them. Call it deep trolling, But the river fishing is really going to turn on and get good here in the next couple of weeks. We had this Arctic front come through here and kind of slowed it down. But a few days before that Arctic front, I was out on the water and we graphed a bunch of fish, went back over them, started catching them. And Luke, I mean, these fish they're 2-pound fish full of eggs. And just some really, really big fish.
David, something that I love sand bass, white bass, love to catch them, love to remove the red meat first. I will say that, and I love to eat them after I remove the red meat. But people talk about an honest 2-pound white bass is a big one. But I know you get a kick out of it, and I know you hear it. Yeah, we caught some 3-pounders, maybe 3 1/4 pound. Well, I want to show me one, right? I mean, they do get that big. I understand that, but that's rare, isn't it? A 2-pound white bass is a big one,
Oh, that's a big fish.
Yeah,
it sure is.
He's going to be 16 inches long. Yeah,
I've had clients break the lake record about 3 times, but nobody ever wanted to turn it in. So I guess that's just all hearsay. But I have in the spring, I've broken the record. I said, hey, I weighed a fish. Said, you got the lake record here. But nobody was ever interested in certifying it. So anyway, that's just one of my things. But we call them river fish because I don't know, the thing is they're just big. When they spawn in the river this time of year, they're just always bigger fish. And so I'm really excited about it right now. And I know this system up here, I guess you say intimately. I've fished it so long, so many years. I know every little hump and cut and swing and sandbar. Mm-hmm. And it's changed over the years. there's a lot of places up these creeks now you can't even get into. With a John boat, it's just sanded in so much. But I know it like the back of my hand, I promise you. And I can go out there and find them usually pretty good, depending on the the Trinity River, Lake Livingston is such a volatile lake. It changes so fast. You get heavy rains in Dallas, you get local rain, and all this is kind of coming together. And Lake Livingston can go. This river here, I'm talking about how pretty and green it is. If we get a bunch of rain, it can turn over overnight. And that bite I'm talking about right now, it'll just ruin it. So, you gotta kind of be there. Get on it while it's good. Is all I can say.
Yep, David. When you're, let me ask you this: when you're right now, what are you trolling with? I mean, when you're running a stretch of the river. You're trying to find the concentrations. I know what you're doing, but what kind of bait would you troll with, and how would you troll it? To find them.
Yeah, there's a couple of ways, and honestly, I don't know why, but in my mind, I do it a little bit different in the fall than I do in the spring, and in the spring right now for these big white bass, in a couple of ways. But I call it long trolling because you got to get your bait down there deep. Some of this water's, 25, 30 foot deep, and these fish will be kind of suspended. And you see people trolling. I tell people all the time, don't troll so much out in the middle of the river because these fish will suspend along the drop-offs and ledges. And you see them on your graph, big schools. But I troll a big rattle trap type bait, a swim bait, but some of my favorites for these spring fish is a 3/4 ounce rattle trap type bait.
Yeah,
and if the sun's out, I mean you got to stay basic. I mean go with your blue chrome, black chrome. If it's a little overcast or cloudy, I even use a chartreuse or there's a copper colored bait that I use a lot. And but use the bigger bait, and because they're big fish, and just let it. You got to let it out. I mean, I call it long troll and let it out because it's a lipless bait, so it doesn't dive and get down deep. You got to let it out. I mean, several hundred feet behind the boat, and a couple techniques when you get on these fish. If you throw your boat in neutral, and stop that bait, let it fall, and I call it stop, drop, and pop. And jerk your rod and this and that. And a lot of times you'll fire up a bite. And of course, other way, which you're not long trolling so much, is use a lipped crankbait, and that lip is going to take it down. And several different manufacturers of those baits work fine, but kind of the same color patterns. And you can take the back hooks off just like you do trolling in the summer. And put you a leader on there with a small pet spoon with the yellow bucktail is my favorite. And you control, just 100 feet behind the boat in the tail race of your motor with that lipped crankbait and catch them. I do that more for some reason. I do that lip crankbait with the pet spoon. I do that more in the fall, like in November, October, November. And I don't know why, but I just seem like I slow troll a little bit more with the bigger baits this time of year.
You bet.
And when you hit them like that, you can come around and start throwing then I turn around and start throwing the lip crankbaits into them. Or, even like we call them whirly birds, the blue fox. But use the 1/4 ounce, the bigger one, and give it a chance to kind of get down deep. And you can catch them on a spoon, just a regular old jigging spoon or a slab spoon.
For sure.
Once you find them, just throw it out there and let it go down deep and pop your rod up, let it fall, and man, you can load the boat once you find them like that this time of year.
That's right. David, how about road runners? Do you use those very often?
I don't use them so much in the river. It seems like in the spring I use in the creeks. Road runners are one of my favorite baits, but when I get in the river like this and these big fish in a wide open river, I just use a bigger bait. Now I will throw a quarter-ounce jig head with a swim bait, like we used to call them, sassy shads.
Yeah.
Just
Oh,
a
yeah. Yeah.
a shad tail body.
Right.
A shad tail body on a quarter-ounce jig head. And, you fish the cuts and points and sandbars and, make a long cast late, get down deep. But, that's one of my number one go-to baits over the years is going to be that swim bait.
Yeah, they've called it. Used to be a little bait called a little fishy that I've caught a bunch of white bass on. Folks, if you're listening on our great radio stations, you know where Trinity River and you know where Lake Livingston is, and you know about the legendary white bass run. That's what we're talking about. But after our stations run this show, it becomes a podcast on everywhere. And if you're listening to it in Timbuktu, that's the area that we're talking about. And if you're coming to Texas, David Cox here, Palmetto Guide Service, you want to get a hold of David. It's some fun fishing. I call it backwoods fishing. You'll be back in a creek where there ain't nobody. Put it that way. David, we're about out of time. How do people reach you if they want to come down there and experience this?
Well, best thing to do, Luke, now is just go to my website, palmettoguideservice.com. A lot of information on there. And I've got a interactive booking calendar system on there through Go Fish.
Yep.
And you can look at all my available dates, answer all your questions. I mean, I'd be glad for anybody to call me anytime at 936-291-9602. All your questions can be answered on my website. And also, like I said, there's a interactive booking calendar right there. And I did want to throw this out there as far as the best places to fish the river. Right now, I would recommend launching over at Becky Creek Marina. It's a great facility there. It's a safe place to leave your equipment, and you can access the river from there, and fish cleaning facilities and lodging there. So I'll just throw that out there. That's a great place to stay for your white bass run up here, especially when they're in the river.
Good deal, David. Well, David, thank you a lot, buddy, and I look forward to getting back to you. It's been a long time, but I'd like to jump in the boat with you and catch some of those white bass. Folks, that about wraps our show up for this week. I've enjoyed being with you, and I hope you had a good time, too. And, folks, we're also brought to you by the Choctaw Hunting Lodge up in southeast Oklahoma, located about, 45 minutes west of Hugo, Oklahoma, owned by the Choctaw Nation. It's about 45,000 acres of awesome mountain, country, hills, valleys, loaded with game, lots of eastern turkey, and they do eastern turkey hunts if you're looking for a spot to hunt turkey in the spring.